Yes, you're watching the Leadership Forum, and of course today is Friday. We normally engage our panelists also. We hear from them just to give us also what they think about what is going on in the country as far as the heightened political scene is. And of course, we've seen their barnstorming in the counties. There's an issue also of dead voters, but we get an assurance from the IEBC that that is not a matter that should be a niggling worry for Kenyans. But also, we can see the opposition taking special umbrage with that, saying they do not trust the credibility of this particular final register, that people are saying we have 1 million dead voters there. So allow me to introduce our panelists this morning. We have with us Daisy Amdany. She's the chairperson of the National Women's Political Alliance. Also, all right, you're making his term on air. This is what I've been given. Executive Director, Community Advocacy and Awareness Trust, CRON. And also she's actually the chairperson of the National Women's Steering Committee coordinator. And also joining us this morning, we have Sandra Ocholla, founder and managing director of Tukuka. She's the Deputy Executive Director, Kenya Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS. We'll give you the profiles much later in the course of the program. Also, we have Veronica, Maina, Deputy Chair, Jubilee Party, and former Secretary General, Jubilee Party as well. We're eagerly waiting for Esther Passaris to join us much later in the course of the program. Right, let's just get to tackling the issues right now. We begin with you, Daisy Amdany. Looking at the voter register, the KPMG came up with their latest report regarding it. And of course, people have been, trashing it, saying, how could they do a sloppy job? Why do we have still dead voters within the register? And we've given them a good, tiny sum of money.
I think KPMG, they said how many dead voters they found in keeping with the records. And I think it's important that we separate issues, because there are issues that are related to IEBC. There are issues that are related to the Registrar of Persons, Births and Deaths, and those are separate, because IEBC have come out very clear to say that they cannot purge the register from names that are not given to them by the Registrar of Persons and Deaths. I mean, how do they know who is dead and who is alive? They need those registers. And I think that they've been very clear about that, because we seem to be blaming everybody wholesale. KPMG gave their audit.
Yes.
Although we're still waiting for IEBC to release the full audit report, which they said they would once it was tabled in Parliament. And I think that's what people are reacting to, that we haven't seen the full audit, so we don't even know the extent of the challenges that are related to the voters register. But I do, I mean, for me, I accept what IEBC is saying. They cannot purge the register unless they're given those names, right? Because you might remove somebody who is dead. They can't, because you have come and said, my dad or my sister or my somebody is dead, I remove them from the register. They need the official communication from the institution that is tasked to give that information. That's fine. The other thing is, remember that we have the biometric voter identification process. And you cannot be identified by the biometric voter identification if you're not there. Okay? So because remember that not everybody on the register is going to vote anyway, even those who are alive. It is those people who will turn up to vote. Now, of course, the fears are we've had numbers that do not that do not match. You find excessive numbers of voters, more than the registered voters in the area. That has been an issue before, ballot stuffing, massaging of numbers. But now the IEBC have demonstrated, at least so far, that they have a system of identifying voters. For me, I think what we need to hear from IEBC, what are the complementary systems? You remember that within the law, we have the provision of a complementary system, that if the biometric voter identification fails, remember that's what happened in 2013, that if that fails, then there is a complementary system. We do not know what that complementary system is. It is important that we be told what the complementary system is. The other thing that we must be told is that, how do you deploy at what point, what is the procedure of deploying that complementary system?
Yes.
And what is the threshold for failure of technology? Because we cannot accept, if technology fails wholesale, then we know that is a problem, because that's what happened in 2013.
Yes.
And while we can accept that technology would fail, but what is the acceptable threshold of technology failure? Then we say, then, okay, fine, you know, here things are not happening right. The other thing that we need is for them to publish that register. You know, publish the register, let everybody know what is that final register. Because remember, that was also an issue in 2013.
Yes.
When the issue of the register came up, suddenly there were 3 registers, you know. So which one do you use? I think we need to know what is that register. And that's what people are calling for. IEBC need to communicate with Kenyans, not just the politicians. They need to communicate with the voters. The voters are key stakeholders. We need to know how these things are going to work. We need to see the testing of this equipment, not in the studio here where you test 4 of us and then you say, yes, it is working. Remember that we're going to have hundreds of thousands of people using this system. Can it meet the stress test? You know, you remember Michael Joseph came up with this peculiar habits of Kenyans,
yes,
where the system would literally go down when everybody was calling. Can this system, I know they say that it is operating on a different platform, can the system actually withstand the stress of transmitting bulk information at a go? You know, this is what we need to see, not studio demonstrations of, I have been identified as a voter. Can we have these things tested? And time is running out,
right,
you know? And you see, that was also the time constraints of 2013 did not allow for testing of the BVR kits. They came, some of them had not been charged. Everything, you remember the transmission system was frozen in time, you know. So there are so many issues, and those are the things that IEBC must lay to rest, you know, that we're going to publish this register, BVRs will be used, dead people cannot vote, because of course, I mean, people are going to die 2 days, 3 days on the day of elections, people will die, so dead people will be on the register. But how will they ensure that we don't have people resurrecting?
Right. Okay, and of course, are we really cutting it too close? Because yes, as you bring out these issues of testing, because I remember even the other time, they did a pilot testing, you know, prior in
a studio.
Was it? No, they did actually in some pockets of the country.
Oh,
it was
in 2013.
In 2013, not this current one. So they are really cutting it too close, because actually we have only 31 days to go to the general election, and then if we found there faults with that particular BVR kits, is there any wiggle room that they have, or how will it pan out, Sandra?
My misgiving with the whole debate is that there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation going around, and you find the IEBC saying that it is ready. It started talking about its kit, it started talking about its technological issues way before, and from the conversations we'll be having with the IEBC, even what we've been seeing and reading in the media, IEBC says it's prepared. And so from my end, I'd like to give the IEBC a benefit of doubt. However, that does not rule out the fact that we all need to be responsible across the board with regard to the information we are giving out, with regard to the information we are taking in, and exercise some form of responsibility in terms of safeguarding the independence and credibility of our institutions.
Yes.
And for me, this responsibility also goes to the IEBC in terms of, is it giving us adequate information? For instance, all these issues that you are witnessing now were the same issues that we witnessed way back in 2013. And as a commission, it will have preempted what is happening right now and said, as we are developing a register, as we are doing all these audits, then this is what we have done. We've invited KPMG to come and audit this register, and some of the issues that could be raised, that dead voters resurrecting, we have a backup to assure the voters and even the politicians that indeed the register is clean. The second responsibility lies with the politicians. Fine, it's a political period, but then the more we cast aspersions on our institutions, the question will be towards what end? Because 5-10 years from now, we'll still need the same institutions, we still need the same professionals to run our political institutions. The third responsibility lies with the voters, the electorate. Are you capable of questioning the kind of information you are given, or are we still in an environment where what a politician says has more value than what you can find out for yourself? So for me, I'd like to give some credibility to the IEBC and what it is doing. and say that let us exercise more responsibility as we move towards the next, August election. Fine, it's a political period, we're in a competitive environment, but we also need to look beyond August 9th. What more are we looking forward to as a country in terms of our institutions, in terms of our national cohesion?
All right, but they've been given 5 years. Of course, we have this cycle towards a general election. We wonder then, within the five good years they've been having, what have they been doing in terms of preparation?
The problem is you have an IEBC whose commissioners came quite late in the day. And you remember with the first years, all these squabbles of the commissioners, the previous commissioners being taken out of office.
We cannot really rest with that stock excuse that we still have new commissioners, right? Before these new commissioners, what were the other commissioners doing? That's right, to prepare the way for actually these new commissioners to have a very seamless flowing, takeover.
And that, my statement is not to give a blanket cover of the challenges that IEBC is facing, and neither am I speaking for them. What I am trying to put forward is that the IEBC is trying. We are not going to have a perfect system. You're not going to have a perfect environment with which we operate in. But then, what are the basic minimums that we can assist each other in terms of ensuring that we have a free and fair election?
All right,
yes.
Veronica, it seems also that IEBC is making NASA a bit antsy when it comes to the issue of complementary, the complementary devices that they have in case the electronic system fails. Why are they cagey with this information? Of course, I know you're not holding brief for them, but of course,
yes,
you have an opinion as well.
I am not holding brief for IEBC, but as a Kenyan and as one of top officials in Jubilee Party, we are definitely very concerned about the issues that are being raised, because what you will find with our nation is that we have a lot of pessimism, in the sense that even when this new commission came into place, there was a display of lack of confidence in them even before they performed anything. So first of all, I would want to say, as we ride towards 8th August 2017, we need to demonstrate a sense of support to the constitutional commissions that are working within this nation. Because, for instance, when a political party leader issues a statement that should we have any disputes after 8th of August 2017, I will not go to the courts, that shows there is lack of confidence in an institution, in a constitutional institution. So I would first say, as a matter of statement, that we need to demonstrate, encourage, support, give objective criticisms to the institutions so that they are able to perform, and we help them propel towards, achieving what they intend to achieve on 8th August. I do not think the commission right now is riddled with bad faith. I think they have a lot of good faith. They have demonstrated it. And I would want to comment, first of all, about KPMG having done the audit on that register. We should ask ourselves, is KPMG a professional firm? If we answer yes, then we must be able to show once again that we have confidence in the professionalism of the institution that was selected to do the audit. And then we must remember something about the integrated candidate management system that the IEBC is right now using. It's an electronic system where it is collating registration of voters together with the registration of candidates. It's collating the results transmission system, and the net effect of this management system is to ensure it eliminates a lot of fraud in the use of either the kits, and it's also collating the verification of voters. Meaning what? Like my sisters are saying here, it will not be possible, for instance, supposing somebody dies on 6th of August 2017, are they able to vote? I would say no. Why are they not able to vote? Because the EVID system cannot identify them as a voter within the Republic of Kenya. So what I would say is that if we can be honest ourselves, for instance, the polling officers, be honest, deliver the right result from the polling station. If you are honest from the grassroots, cascading upwards, there will be no way that that system can eliminate the integrity, the virtue of integrity and honesty. So what I would want to first say is the polling officers who are now being tasked with the responsibility of doing this heavy task, of performing this task for IEBC, they must, as a person, be responsible, be people of integrity. And if you know you are not a person of integrity, please don't go for that job. Because then, if I cannot trust the result in the polling station, then I cannot trust the result at the constituency level. I cannot trust the result at the presidential level.
Right.
So first I would say, let's have polling officers who are honest. Regarding the backup system, you remember this debate was, this dialogue has been carried out before in Kenya to the extent that it was taken to court. And the backup system was to service any kit that may fail. Now, people expressed a lot of pessimism on that manual backup system. But what we failed to discuss was what was the content of the backup. Because, for instance, if someone has transmitted a picture through my mobile phone using WhatsApp or whatever other platform, if I print that same picture, what you ask yourself, is the content the same? So that if one kit fails or two kits fails, and you have the same information that was in the kit in the manual system, then what would you then distrust about the content of that document? So what I would say is, as we walk towards 8th of August, can we demonstrate responsibility as Kenyans? As poll officers, can you demonstrate that responsibility? Okay,
but the good question would be then, IEBC also, you know, they were eagerly waiting to hear the outcome of the courts. But even within IEBC, do they trust their own machinery, the structures and systems in the first place? Because why are they having misgivings about the polling centers, that their results should not be announced from the polling centers? And yet, this is their own system in the first place. Let's hear from Esther. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to it. Let's hear from Esther. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. You see, IEBC shows bias or a lack of actually, you know, when you're dealing with a lot of political parties and one party comes and says, we want counting of the votes in the constituency level, engage. It doesn't have to go to court. Because at the end of the day, what we want is a free, fair and credible election. Yes. But the fact that they actually challenged this, I'm glad they didn't go to the Court of Appeal, they left it where it was at the end. They didn't go to the Supreme Court. But for me, I agree with my sisters here that the integrity of all Kenyans is at question here. From how are you voting? Are you voting because of your tribe? Are you voting because of your party affiliation? Are you voting because of... are you voting because you've been given a handout? You know, poverty, people say poverty is the reason why I'll take that handout as an agent in the polling station or as a voter and vote the other way. The thing is, today I believe that if you're going to throw money to voters and say, vote for me, the beauty is the voter will lack integrity because he'll promise you that I'm going to vote for you, but when he gets in the polling booth, he can vote whoever he wants, okay? So if you have money to give it, but they will vote the way they want. But the question is the agents. I remember when I was running for an election in 2008, majority of our agents were compromised. They did not, you know, we were paying them 2,000. The opponent kept all his money ready to pay agents double. Don't say this. And then they say it's because I'm poor. Let me tell you something. If you're poor, you're even more poorer if you have no integrity. You know, you have to hold on to integrity. Because I keep asking, we have so many churches in this country. Every corner of this country has churches. Where are we failing? Why is this life that we have on this earth that is so short, so much more important than eternal life, which is why we're here, to know God. So when you go to church on Sunday and you pray, and you say, God, give me this, give me that, because everything that we have will not come from a politician. It will come from God. So let's start by being true to God. That's where it all starts. Then we raise our integrity levels. And I would like to say, you know, there was this book, Kenya Burning, and they had an exhibition that went around the whole country. I would like that exhibition put in the IEBC headquarters, because they have the first mandate to ensure a free, fair and credible election. So if you put that around the IEBC headquarters, as they go in, as they go out, have all the agents. So if you're going to train all your agents, put them in a room where you have those posters. We do not want Kenya to burn. We do not want Kenya to bleed. We want to go on the 8th of August and vote. And if we're going to have a free, fair and credible election, and all the machines are going to work, and you have spares in case there's going to be a failure, then I know that no dead voter will vote. Because I agree with Daisy that there will always be dead voters on the register, because people die the night before elections. But The question is, if our agents, who it's their own integrity that counts, will not be compromised, right? So I think the prayer, you know, today we're going to Uhuru Park to pray, and we're praying, all of us, the leaders are coming together to pray. So I'm saying, as we go to pray, let us be sincere, if not to ourselves, to the God that has given us life.
Thank you.
It's true.
Thank you. All right, let's continue this particular discussion. I think before we took a short break, you wanted to say something before Esther took on, that is Veronica, still on the IEBC. I don't know what it was on your tongue to say, or maybe you've lost your track of thought.
Yeah, maybe we could catch back the track of thought. But like Esther mentioned about the integrity and the fact that Kenya, we pride ourselves with having over 84% of Christians among the population. I think that confession and that ownership of Christianity virtues and other faiths, we have, most of the Kenyans are very godly people. They are calling on God every Sunday. The churches are thronged, they are full. We need to see demonstration of those virtues that are taught on every Sunday and on every Friday in the mosques. We need to see that demonstration as we walk towards 8th of August. And like Esther has mentioned about everybody taking responsibility. For instance, if you have a vote and you are registered as a voter, and on 8th of August, you decide you do not want to go to the vote,
yes.
You know what you have actually said by failing to turn up and vote? You have actually said that you do not want a clear winner for this election, and you have actually said that you can risk everybody because you're not willing to walk to the polling station to vote. So just by virtue of making a decision that you're not going to vote on 8th, never mind what reason you use for that, because for instance, when you ask young people, why do you not want to vote? They are disappointed with the system. They are disappointed with many things. If you are disappointed, go and vote out the people who have disappointed you by voting in the person who you would like to see as your leader. And then in the choice of our leadership, we should be able to analyze the integrity of the leader we are picking, whether they respect people, they can uphold human dignity. You know, we are the same Kenyans who vote in leaders who cannot even uphold basic human dignity. If your choice of a leader is based on the 100 shillings they give you, then something is very wrong. And you're not helping this nation to propel itself to the destiny that God would love Kenya to have.
But the information is on the ground is that, yes, we have a very enlightened voter right now. That they will take your money, but they'll keep the money, but they'll know who they'll vote for at the end of the day. So, pesa leta, lakini kura itakagua mimi mwenyewe.
Yeah, well, but that pesa letter is also what distorts the vote, because the people who give out money, they spend their time, first of all, looking for that money, usually from unlawful sources, or sources that actually end up destroying our institutions. Because you've heard of several politicians when they talk about putting together a war chest, you know, for the purposes of manipulating the voter through giving them money. And you remember what Parliament did. One of the election offenses had been the offense of treating voters. That's, you know, giving out money and giving out incentives, you know. But they removed treating from the electoral offense and said that they must treat their voters. So I think that even moving forward, we really need to really discuss how our elections are carried out, how our campaigns are carried out. Remember the election capping, the expenditures that IEBC released,
yes,
you know, before they suspended the Campaign Financing Act. First of all, those figures were ridiculous. You know, I mean, when you're saying that a political party can spend up to 15 billion shillings, and when you think that as a country, when we make, I see the president has just assented to, you know, giving the county allocations funds. When you look, Nairobi, as a devolved unit, is getting 15.4 billion
that
shillings.
Is on the back page of a Daily Nation.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you hear IEBC saying that a political party can actually spend up to 15 billion shillings for campaigns for a period of 3 months. And it is more, you know, and we are saying that as a county, for the purposes of development, recurrent expenditure and all that, you're getting 15 billion, more than even what the smallest counties are getting. What are we saying as a nation? You know, that we want our campaigns to be money contests,
yes.
You know, and the question that we must ask is, where is this money coming from? We've seen today Business Daily revealing Kenya's billionaire taxpayers. But I wonder how many of these billionaire taxpayers would be able to make those kind of contributions towards political parties. So I think we need to begin to ask ourselves about the campaign financing regimen, because it is also the one that contributes towards the distortion of the way our campaigns are carried out, so that it is not an issues-based contest, it is a contest of money. Who can bamboozle the voter more? Who can have a more elaborate, you know, campaign based on how much money you have available? But having said that, the issue of integrity is a major issue here in Kenya. We saw the nomination exercise. While I agree, you know, because Veronica and Esther are both members of political parties, and we saw how the political parties behaved. We saw how their agents behaved. First of all, the political parties themselves have no integrity. Let's start there, okay?
All right.
The political parties themselves have no integrity because they don't even follow their own rules and regulations, okay? So when you already have a process that has already been compromised because there are certain preferred, you know, outcomes, then already we are looking at the issue of integrity from a very central point. We saw poll agents, you know, remember there was a lot of, you know, these days the advantage of having mobile phones with cameras and video recording. How many people are willing to be compromised? Because we must remember that these poll agents that IEBC will use, remember that IEBC, they announce, they put out announcement for people to apply to be their agents. So they're not going to get people from a different planet. They are getting from the pool of Kenyans. We saw the agents of different political parties severely compromised, people, you know, being used to pre-mark ballots, you know, and all. So I think that even as IEBC, in keeping with, yes, it's good that people have integrity, but assuming that people are willing to be compromised and have even taken those jobs because they are avenues of being compromised. You know, there are people who actually take jobs because they know people will want to pay me to be able to do certain things for them. There must be very strict penalties for people who have been given the task of being IEBC, presiding, returning officers, polling clerks and all, that if they are used to manipulate any of the results or the electoral process or the voting process, there must be very, very strict penalties.
Strict penalties.
Yes, because, and people must be personally liable. Because you see, when we are talking about IEBC, IEBC can only work through their agents.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank
so
you.
we definitely need to see strict penalties.
Sandra, we need to hear from you as well. When it comes to because I think the NASA has an alternative, or ODM has an alternative, that yes, we will have an alternative tallying center. How do you think that this will really pan out? If maybe there's mistrust with the IEBC, do you think there's going to be any clash when you have different results coming from different tallying centers?
I don't think so, depending on how it's managed. And I think what you said before is that the institutions and the machines are only as good as the people who manage them. NASA having its own tallying center, it's something that's allowed, in the same way we allow other international institutions to come and observe the election, because the whole purpose of it is to verify the election process and to give some credibility to the election process. So it is their right. They have every leeway. They have all the resources from what we've been hearing. But then it goes back to how this is going to be handled. And again, goes back to the issues of the integrity, not only of their system, but also of the people that will be operating these machines. One unfortunate thing that I read over the newspapers was, I read in the newspapers rather, was that at the polling station, I think one of the NASA point people was telling the voters that once you have voted, you stay within the polling station. Do not go back home. Now, such utterances, such directions, those will be the causes of confusion. Those will be the causes of acrimony within the polling areas on that polling day. And so it still goes back to how effective we want to be in terms of claiming a free and fair election. Are we all playing by the rules of all these structures that we have? Are we implementing them in a manner that is giving credibility not only to the results we are going to get, but to the whole process, and ensuring that each and everybody plays a role, and the exact role they're supposed to be playing within that given environment. So it is not the systems that will cause problems, in my perspective. It is how it's our actions and utterances during that period.
All right, Veronica.
Let me comment on that issue of NASA having a talent center. I think we need to separate issues here, and I think we have confused the talent center for IEBC to be equivalent to the NASA talent center. That cannot be further from the truth. Every political party has a system to tally its vote anytime it presents a candidate to the electoral process. So if you have 57 political parties, or for instance 60, there are about 60-something political parties in Kenya. Those political parties, as long as they have fielded candidates in respective elective posts, they will have a system to collate their results to see how their candidates are faring as the process continues being carried on 8th of August. So let me say this for clarity. Jubilee Party will have its internal mechanism of tallying the results. Does that become the constitutional way of tallying the vote, official, legal, constitutional, that declares the winner? I say no. Does NASA Tallying Center become equivalent of what the IEBC Tallying Center is? I say no. Because the only institution mandated by law to collect those results for purposes of announcing to Kenyans and declaring the political leaders of Kenya is a single institution called Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. That's the IEBC. So let's rest that issue today. Because 60 political parties in Kenya, as long as they fielded candidates, will have their own internal mechanism. So let me say, NASA has declared, what it has done is to give publicity, maybe for its own assurance to the members. It is for its own internal mechanism, maybe to assure the members that they will be watching. We also talk about the role of an agent who is fielded by a political party to the electoral system. This is one single most important person and officer for a political party, because their work is to walk into that polling station or into the tallying center, monitor the results, monitor the process. First of all, it's to monitor the process, monitor the results, and communicate that result to the party. So for instance, if a polling station was being run from 6 o'clock, and your agent comes in at 9 o'clock, and they decide so much has been done wrong between 6 and 9, honestly, are you dealing with an officer who is responsible, first of all, as a political party? I would say no, and I will not have such an agent running in my polling station. Because number one, you have been irresponsible. You are using hearsay instead of performing your task on the day of the poll. So I would say this: let political parties mind the business of who their agent is. That agent, when they give you the right results, they are supposed to sign a certain form at the polling station. Yes. Once they sign that form, they have agreed the voting was done okay, no voter was given 2 ballot papers, they cast that ballot, and they had the independence of choosing the candidate they want. We know very well that 24 hours before the poll, we are not supposed to be campaigning, isn't it? Nobody is supposed to be campaigning. So at that point, voters must be left to make a decision on who their right candidate is for respective posts. So I would say this: let's separate political parties tallying center from IEBC. They are not at the same level. The arbiter is the IEBC, and that's the constitutionally mandated commission to declare results.
Who will be the arbiter in case, or should there be any misgivings?
If there are any disputes, there is another institution that is mandated by the Constitution to handle disputes, electoral disputes. Yes. We have seen several issues that have arisen, even where NASA or Jubilee has complained about IEBC. They have gone straight to court, requested for cancellation of certain aspects. So the judiciary now comes in to to resolve the disputes that might arise from the electoral system.
It's good for the benefit of the public. Esther?
You know, I've just actually thought something right now. These elections can be rigged so easily if the BVR can allow, not even the BVR. I mean, at the end of the day, you just said something that caught me. If a voter is given 2 ballot papers, right? And I'm just thinking that is where we all have to be vigilant. Because if there's a possibility that you're going to be given 2 voting ballots.
Why would you be given 2?
No, but because if that could be a rigging plan, okay? So you get 2 ballot papers, you go to the counter, you tick 2 of them, and you put them into the bin. So you don't forget, you make the vote once, but you've presented 2 ballot papers. So I think the attention has to be put on when you're putting your ballot paper that it's 1. And if in any situation you find that somebody actually has 2 papers, they should be aware that the police that normally man these stations remove the officials of IEBC from there. So IEBC should have standby agents in every polling station. Because I'm serious, because you just said something and it caught my eye. So can imagine I go there, and because I'm a supporter of a specific party in that particular region, it could go either way, okay? And I'm given 2 ballot papers because that's the plan. So I go, I cast the vote twice. All right.
That's why the BVR is important.
Yeah, but the thing is the BVR giving a count? Does it give a total?
Yes. Remember, the BVR is connected. In fact, if you're one voter, see, it identifies you as a voter. You're given 1 ballot. So if at the end of the day you're given 2 ballots, what will happen? There will be a discrepancy between the number of ballots that have been cast, because
I think she raises a valid question.
But only if the BVR doesn't work.
No.
Only if the BVR doesn't work.
Just a moment.
Don't push it out of control.
Okay, I'm just trying to think about it, because of course we're trying to, have all cases.
You're right.
Case scenarios here.
But she's right in the sense that is only a real possibility if the BVR doesn't work.
But let me
But here,
let me explain
just a moment. Just a moment, because I get it the way Esther she's getting. You come to the polling center. You actually key in your fingerprints there. It's captured by the BVR,
and it also captures the number.
The numbers of.
We know how many people have been identified.
Just a moment. No, all right, just a moment. Okay, just a moment. So we have the polling clerk. She gives you, maybe this is a ballot paper, but it is 2 of them. Of course, you've passed. But you get 2 ballot papers, and you go with the 2 ballot papers to the polling booth.
But one voter is only entitled to 1 ballot.
Akipewa
mbili, there will be a discrepancy, because remember that they are serialized
with our presentations. Let's not become alarmist in our presentation.
No, we are just thinking. We are not raising alarm.
For instance, there are many situations that can happen, even beyond just 2 ballots. There are many other situations that can happen. The one who is writing the results, the final tallying sheet, could also change the figures, isn't that so? There are many possibilities of electoral fraud. But what we are saying, when you have agents for different political parties, by the way, I have participated in several processes, electoral processes, both at nomination level and at voting level. Now, if you do not have integrity of the agents, an agent watches for you, is your advocate on that day, because they are watching the person who walks in as a voter. If you see an agent who is so disinterested, just chewing gum, seated at the corner of the room, they are not doing their job. They are supposed to watch with their own eyes, even doing nothing, just watching, that a person walks in, a person is verified, the voter is verified, the voter picks one ballot, because that's the integrity of the whole process. And after picking, they'll be picking a set of 6 ballot papers, because there are 6 positions that need to be filled. Once they finish picking those, they go to a private booth where they are supposed to be voting. There are many aspects of how the system must be managed in order to carry the test of integrity, to pass the test of integrity. Because, for instance, look at the voters who are not able to, for instance, mark, or they need to be assisted. There are voters who are assisted on that day. And what happens when they are being assisted? All the agents come together with the PO. So those agents must be trained to be able to understand how does this process work. If an agent is not trained, they are not good enough to observe how the process has been done.
All right.
And perhaps, Debarl, it's important for us to emphasize the post-election processes and the role of the courts afterwards, because most of the times when we make such statements, you find people view it as a do or die affair. The elections have been rigged. These are the results. There are discrepancies in the results, and so we are solving it here and now. But then it's important for us to realize the post-election period and the role of the courts. The moment the returning officers already announced the results, his job is done. So the issue moves to the judiciary, and it's now the court to adjudicate or arbitrate under the circumstances and say the number of ballots cast do not tally with the number of people registered. There were incidences of treating, there were incidences of bribery, there were incidences of intimidation that have affected the overall results within that polling station. So I think it's important for us to look through the whole system, the whole electoral system, so that we are not having do we say a bad vision and trying to find solutions on our own. Yes.
As opposed to the process.
To the process itself, okay.
You know, if you want a transparent process, you get rid of all the loopholes. This is one loophole, and we have not gotten rid of it. Another loophole is, I don't know if there is a way within a polling station to say, these are the number of people that visited the polling station or the booth. All right, these are the number of votes casted, because you know you cannot cast more votes in paper than the amount of people that registered. But is there a system? And if there is none, that's a failure on IEBC. I would suggest to IEBC, right now we have also another big problem: independence. Nobody knows how this ballot paper is going to look. Remember, in the olden days, you would vote only one president out of 2 or 3 presidents. Now you're voting out of maybe 11 presidents. Independence. How is the ballot going to look with independence? Are all the independents together in alphabetical order, so you have a ballot of about 30-40 people in one polling station, right? How are you going to find it? And I think IEBC, with all that money that you have, it's about time, since you did not have enough time for civic education, have little commercials demonstrating how you come in and vote. You know, what the ballot paper will look like. Because I think it's only education, because how you'll vote. But at the end of the day, we need to have, they say, okay, the ballot paper has to be secret until the last day and all that. But I'm saying, at the end of the day, we already know what the candidates are. They are on the IEBC. Let's educate Kenyans on how it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's very key, because let's hear from Daisy, and then we'll have callers also, you know, hanging on the line. We'll hear from them as well. But the issue of the party symbol, of course, and what that on the ballot paper, what the symbol will be, either an X or a tick, that has been very confusing to the public as well. And I think also IEBC is not doing a good job in terms of awareness, creating awareness of how the ballot papers will look like as well. But another question as well, coupled with that, is, do you, because I know these ballot papers, and I know none of you is from IEBC to hold brief on them, or for them, they are serialized. Why can't these serial numbers from the ballot papers also be tagged, you know, with your BVR identification?
Exactly.
Right? So we know that when you come, this is your paper, you've got this particular serial number, and when you key in your fingerprint, then it picks up also your serial number and your ballot paper, so that we don't have cases of what Esther was saying. Daisy?
Well, I can't answer that, because I think IEBC would be the ones to answer it. Maybe Veronica would know better. But one thing I do know. No, but you know, because you have been involved in the process.
Yes. This is a thought that we want to put out there in the public.
You put them on the show,
yes.
They answer the questions.
Fantastic.
But to the best of our understanding and the knowledge of how the system is, we can assist with the answers.
Thank you. Let Daisy finish, then we'll come to you.
Yes, I think that it's important. You know, we also mustn't be overly suspicious. I think it's important to say that. Now, as you have indicated, the ballots are serialized,
yes.
Okay? The BVR kit, and this is where I really want to just stress the importance of the BVR, that voter identification process,
yes.
Okay? Because that voter identification process will help also in the tallying of votes, so that you have a consistent number. Okay, you cannot have, you see, like what Esther is talking about, that thing of being given 2 ballots.
Yes.
You know, that's how ballot stuffing, part of ballot stuffing is done. But the voter identification methods is also working towards ensuring that you don't have those kind of incidences happening, you know, because it's easy to stuff ballots if we know here in polling station NTV, we have 5 voters and maybe only 1 turns up. But because we have 5 registered, we can decide to vote for those ninis. And if there is no system of identifying them, then, you know, it's okay. How are you going to prove that guys didn't turn up? Okay. So that is number 1. Number 2, the what are they called? The polling officers are going to have to respond as to why there is a discrepancy between the number of people who have been identified by the system and the number of ballots that have been cast. Because remember, at the end of the whole exercise, these ballots will be counted. There are agents in that polling center. It's not you and only the IEBC clerks who are there. You have party agents, you have observers, you have people who are noting down what is going on. So I think that given that, yes, it is possible to have people manipulate systems, it is important for us to understand that as much as possible is being done to seal the loopholes for people to be able to play mischief and criminally manipulate these processes. And of course, there must be penalties for it. On the issue of voter education, I do agree. IEBC really need to start communicating with Kenyans, because as you know, we may think that it is a simple thing in terms of how you mark your ballot, but you will be surprised. For a lot of people out there, it's a very technical thing, and for some reason, people become terrified, you know, when they are voting. You know, you don't know whether you'll have to, you know, mark the one you don't want. You remember that there was a case some time back when we had, you know, some funky business going on with political parties, where politicians went out and said that if you don't want Debarl as your candidate, when you go there, you go and you mark X. Apo kwa Debarl ndio kusema utaki Debarl. But you see, now if I go and I mark for you, see, that is, I voted for you. So, you know, things like that. Voters need to be educated, because some voters are very, you know, they're liable to manipulation by the political class. IEBC really needs to do voter education, but there are institutions that are doing voter education in collaboration with IEBC. You have organizations like Uraia Trust who are already carrying out voter education on radio, sensitizing voters on what to expect. So I think that IEBC have a lot of work. You know, their work is cut out for them. But I do agree with everybody here that we really need to help them and to support them by not being the ones to cast aspersions on them as an institution. Because who do we want to carry out our elections? It is IEBC that is tasked by law to carry out the process.
Thank you. We have callers who are hanging on the line. We have John hanging on the line this morning. Good morning, John, from Mombasa. Good morning, John.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Yeah, you have a question or a contribution for our panelists this morning?
Yeah, naitwa John.
Yes, please. Una swali? Tafadhali pia punguza volume ya television yako kidogo ndio tukusikie vizuri.
Yeah, niko na swali.
Haya, uliza tafadhali.
Niko na uliza IEBC wanatakuwa wako ready sana ku at least kwa hii election. Tunaona kama zina wako ready.
Hello.
Hello.
Endelea.
Yeah, sasa kuna atichelewa wale watu mambo walisha kuva na bado wako kwa hiyo pole.
All right, I think also the reception is a bit spotty from John, but you got the gist of it. You got. We have Madenge hanging on the line as well. Good morning, Madenge. Habari yako? Habari ya asubuhi.
Good morning, salama. Habari ya siku nyingi.
Mzuri sana, umepotea.
Niko bana. Lakini ngoja tuzungumze kitu kimoja. Tumesikia hapa hawa ni mama zetu na tunawaheshimu, lakini moja nikwambie, hata ukitaka kumsaidia mtoto ama ukitaka kumsaidia mtu ambaye anakuja kwako kutaka kusaidiwa, kitu ya kwanza kama iko kwa shida unamwambia niambie ukweli na mimi ndio nitakusaidia. Lakini IEBC hawataki kuzungumza ukweli. Sasa sisi tutawasaidiaje? Kila kitu ambacho wanazungumza hataki kuzungumza ukweli. Alafu ile kitu watu ambao wanataka kifuate katika sheria wao ndio wanakimbia kwenda kotini. Kwanza kitu ya kwanza IEBC haiwezi kwenda kwa koti kuapili kusema eti hii na nini. Mtu ambaye anataka kuapili ni mtu binafsi ambaye ni kama mimi ambaye ni mpiga kura. Kitu ya pili, huwezi kufikia chama kama Jubilee, na zingine wanasema sisi IEBC wanafanya kazi mzuri, alafu unasikia huku NASA wanasema IEBC kuna makosa hapo. Ujue kwanza hapo kuna line mbili. Kwa nini hao wanasema wanafanya kazi nzuri na hao kwa nini wanasema kuna makosa? Hapo lazima tuchunge pia.
Asante Madenge. Let's hear from Irungu, calling from Embu. Good morning, Irungu. Hello, Irungu from Embu. Good morning. All right, I seem to have lost Irungu there. Maybe you want to respond to some of his questions that are coming from the viewers as well. I know we cannot hold brief for IEBC, so yeah, we can only comment.
You know, as I sit here, I'm thinking, we as Kenyans and leaders, when we're given an office, if we're given an office and we feel accountable to certain people, all right, then we're not able to perform our jobs. If IEBC understands that their accountability is not to the friends that made them get the jobs, their accountability is to the Kenyan population and the God that they worship, okay? So here, I'm looking at these little loopholes. I'm just asking myself, the BVR, is there a way that the BVR can actually say this number of people that have been identified today, right? You wash it clean as you come in. Number of people that have been identified, so you're at 0 is 1,000. Then you know that you cannot have 1,200 ballots, all right? That's one check. Number of people entering into a polling station. If we're saying 700 people are the maximum that can enter, let's just say we have a way of showing that 600 people entered here. You know you cannot have 700 votes. So there are ways and mechanisms in which to ensure that a system is foolproof. You know, look at the Kenya police. We have EGG Pay. Right now, we're all paying our parking through EGG Pay. We're not going to deal with handlers. Money is not being lost. So the county government can know. The police can actually make us pay, reduce the fine, make us pay our fines through the phone, rather than having to deal with the police for fines and being harassed and told, oh, you've got to go to the station tomorrow. So you see, you don't want to be hustled, and we understand the psychology of a human being, so you'd rather just agree with the police, whatever you want to give him, rather than get that paper, go to court, go to Parklands police, anaingia kwa gari yako. So if we want a system that is foolproof, we have to understand the psychology of our citizens, and then we have to put a system in place. IEBC, right now, you need voter civic education. It has not happened. I'm glad you had the conference that was sponsored by the donors at KICC. It was a fantastic step. But right now, start giving us civic education. For me, it doesn't, I mean, I think it was wrong the way the contract was allocated to this company for printing the ballots. But if the courts rule, and we have to respect our courts, if the courts rule that we don't have time, and that's not a reason to rule, if we have a strong case as NASA, then the courts should actually say, go back to the drawing board, tender, all right? And they're saying, oh, we won't have time. But the question I'm having right now is, we as citizens, we know the loopholes. The people who are manning the institutions, Daisy, institutions are buildings. It's not the institution that is a problem. It's the people in the institution. And those people are Kenyans.
Thank you. All right,
can I mention something about what she has said about IEBC collating the vote? You know, the actual physical vote is against what is in the BVR. There is a candidate management system, an electronic system that has been put in place to collate the voters registered, the candidates who have been registered to run for the various positions, the identification process, together with the results transmission. 4 aspects. Now, this is what's going to happen with those 4 aspects. When somebody is identified as a voter into that system, it is very easy to tell the number of registered voters against the number of people who walked into a polling station using that system. So if we remember that IEBC is having that candidate management system, then we will remember that it's very easy for IEBC to stem out any fraud that may be in the electoral process, because the numbers that you show in the electronic system should tally with the number of votes that have been cast in a station. So once that answers the anxiety and the concern that is being raised.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right,
I think there's something we're also losing sight of, that it's not only IEBC, that rather IEBC is not the only institution that we have to deal with within the electoral process. And one thing I've been realizing is that the other relevant institutions have been visibly quiet during this period. IEBC needs support, not only from the political spaces, not only from the electorate, but also from the other institutions. Take, for instance, the National Police, the NCIC, issues of registration and mining of data, this one that registers dead and alive people.
Yes,
yes.
Births and deaths.
Yes.
Births and deaths.
That one. So I think that multi-agency interaction has been lacking, and it continues to lack, yet it is very critical to IEBC delivering. And from the questions you hear, it's sometimes you find the IEBC even dealing with other issues that it's not entirely within its mandate. And I think that is one thing they should have dealt with. I don't know whether it was a silent agreement that the other institutions take a backseat, or it's the IEBC that has not been aggressive enough in looking for that support. But it does need support from the other institutions, and the other institutions must be visible within this electoral period.
Okay.
You know, for me, if I was the government, I would have already fired the directors of the registrar of persons, because they have failed. I have friends who actually have dead relatives, who actually have been registered as dead, and they're still on the voters list, and we cannot clean it up. So maybe IEBC actually knows how many dead voters we have actually still held on to, and how we're going to play it. Okay, this is the problem. If somebody is dead and the registrar of persons has got their records in order, right, then we should not have any dead voters, except for the ones who died maybe the month of August, unless we don't update it on it's not updated on a daily basis. But I want to tell Kenyan voters something. My mother told me, oh, Esther, I didn't go for the verification of voters, and I don't think I'm on the list. So I was in Mombasa recently, and I said, Mom, give me your ID, let me have a look. So I want to tell all voters in Kenya, whether you went for the verification process or not, right? If you voted in 2013, you are still on the list. So please, I know there was voter apathy and people didn't want to have anything to do with it. People were too busy, etc. So all I want to say is that if you voted in 2013, you are more than likely in the list, because my mother did not go for verification and she's in the list. All right. So please go out and vote. The second thing is we need IEBC to really understand that the onus is on them to conduct a free, fair and credible election. I mean, really, you don't want to go down in history as being the most hated man. Sometimes when I think of the last, what's his name, the one who, he died. Kivuitu. When I think of what Kivuitu went through as a person, what his family is going through because of how he was put down, all right? Let us not do the wrong thing. Chebukati, please, this country's peace is on your hands. Your salvation, everything, please do the right thing. Where you see loopholes, seal them, because you know where the loopholes are.
All right, thank you. Before we come to Daisy, we have also USA and Usha. She's standing by with USA. Usha?
Right, 15 minutes to the top of the hour, and your comments are rushing in. Remember, if you haven't gotten your comment through AM Live and TV, that is how you can get us on all social media platforms. So we start with Mbogo, who says, assuming the elections go well, who then verifies the same as credible? Is it NASA, Jubilee, EU observers, or Kenyans? We also have Dickens, who says they deserve capital punishment if found culpable, because it is Kenyans' lives that they are gambling with. We also have EJ, who says, unfortunately, IEBC has become both direct and indirect defender of the ruling coalition with pretense. We also have Kirimi, who says, if IEBC totally capitulates to the whims of one party and its schemes, collusion, dead voters, and manual voting are entirely possible. We have Hype, who says voter education by IEBC has been a failure. I'm sure the job will not be easy on voting day to the IEBC officials. We have Aman, who says, hashtag Mamata has said it very well. Let's be true to God. That's where integrity first starts. This time, vote differently. We must. We have Kay, who says, indeed, the commissioners of the IEBC are newcomers, in fact, latecomers in office. However, we must all be responsible on our ends. So just reiterating on what Sandra had said about all of us being responsible. We have John Gidanga, who says, there is a hidden hand behind IEBC hullabaloos. Some people are making desperate attempts to rig the elections by hook or crook. And finally, we have Tash, who says IEBC should ensure they have a plan B in case plan A fails, or else its credibility will be in deep question. I don't really think that there is time for a plan B. I mean, as it is, people are already complaining. The IEBC themselves are already saying they can't make some of the changes proposed because of time. So I don't really know. Is it good advice for them to have a plan B? Sandra, maybe?
I think do plan B. So it's very easy, you know. Let me say this. You know, this polling business can be made very easy. Did you know if 10 of us wanted to determine who is our chair, we don't even need an IEBC. We can walk in here, take a piece of paper, write it up, and by the end of the day, when you count the 10 pieces of paper, you will see which person got the highest number of votes. That is how simple the electoral system is supposed to be. Walk into that station, take the ballot paper. The ballot paper was, the issue of ballot paper, how it's going to look like, was raised by Honorable Passaris. And that ballot paper will have faces, to the best of my understanding, the faces of the candidates or the persons who are going to be seeking or vying for those positions. And each of them has been compelled by the law to have a symbol. For instance, my symbol for Jubilee is Tuko Pamoja. The symbol for NASA is different.
Right.
The symbol for Tip Tip is different. So when you walk in, you have been seeing the branding of that party, the branding of that person. You are able to tell that's the person who you are looking for. And the faces can tell you. Even if you don't remember their name, you can look at the faces.
Thank you.
So what I would say is, if we accept to be people of integrity, the agents are persons of integrity, the pollsters are persons of integrity, we should be able to walk into a station, pick your ballot paper after identification, tick or put a mark against the candidate you want, and cast that vote.
Thank you.
If I may, by looking at it from a legal perspective, by law, the IEBC is required to have a backup plan. And I think that's where all these discussions about the manual...
The complementary system.
Yes, the complementary system. So by law, they're required to have a complementary system. But then what they're giving priority is the BVR, the electronic system. And so that perhaps what we need to look into is what is the complementary system. What is the complementary system?
They need to tell voters.
They need to tell people. And you see, and also just question, trying to find out what are the things that could go wrong with the BVR kit. We could have power outages, they could come in late, the kits could not work. And so the IEBC needs to preempt and address these situations before they occur.
That's why the manual system, the register, before there was a manual register system, which is based on the same content that is in the BVR.
Right, thank you.
Right. So that's all that we could manage to read right now, but the conversation does go on. #AM Live NTV. That is how you can get us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Debarl.
Right, many thanks indeed, Usha. Yes, your rush of tweets, and of course, we've sampled them with Usha there. Thank you. But we need to also discuss, I think, a little bit before we come to Esther Passaris. Daisy, there's the issue of the nominations. And of course, we're eagerly waiting also for the gazettement of that. We don't know how the names are on the list. But there were bugbears and fears that, there was a leakage on how these names also found their way to some of the media houses as well. And some people, they've been adversely affected by this. We want to weigh in on this because we are barely having sufficient time to actually drill deeper on this. But let's hear from Daisy, as we come straight also to Esther Passaris, when also you're preparing your headline thoughts.
I think that for me, it has been very disappointing. In fact, the political parties have basically scammed their members. Remember that when the nomination for appointments came up, political parties sent out call for applications, okay?
Yes.
And they told people, apply to be considered for nomination in the National Assembly, Senate, county assemblies. So people applied. Now, those applications, there are certain requirements that were needed, including fees that were being charged by political parties. But when we look at the lists as they have come out, and assuming what appeared in the media is genuine, we don't know, because I'm not sure where the media houses got that from. But we work with women in politics and all, and the disappointment is palpable. I think you also saw there was even a demonstration outside the Orange House, yesterday, where the women were demonstrating because they're very disappointed. You're given this expectation that there's going to be a fair process, that you have a fair chance, and you pay certain fees. And then what do we see? We see relatives, we see cronies, we see party officials. Now let me be clear. Parties are well within their rights to give nominations to whoever they want, but they are not within their rights to give people the impression that there is a process that will be undertaken when we already have predetermined lists. We have family members on these lists. We would want to know the people who appear on these lists as being nominated. Did they follow the procedure of the party in that they applied like the other people, or was it now a closed shop? Because you find members of the party officials, the NEC, they have got their names on this list. There's nothing wrong with that. Possible, it is possible. But if you take money from me to say that I apply for nomination to the National Assembly, I pay certain fees, but the list that comes out is those people who failed at the nomination, your relatives and party officials. What chances did the others have? And that is the disappointment. So that now what we see is that political parties remain as institutions that are owned by certain people. And those are the people who call the shots. So that they are still not public institutions owned by the parties. And this is what we've been saying. We've been saying that we need to see colleges that empower the different leagues, the women leagues, the youth leagues, so that there is actually a process, a fair process that allows for people to be nominated as per the Constitution. So the political parties, in my opinion, have engaged in some kind of fraud against their members or the people who anticipated that they would be on these lists.
Sandra, then are we riding on assumptions? Because yes, we don't have the ultimate, gazetted list as well. So if maybe they have concerns and demonstrating, on what information, on what basis are they demonstrating? Very briefly, Sandra.
And I think you've asked the right question, because that boils down to internal party management, how it manages its affairs, how it communicates to the people involved, and generally how the outlook it has as a party. But one thing I'm happy about is that the other institutions involved, you have the IEBC that now will be expected to look through these names to ensure that the processes and procedures were followed, so that we are sticking to the constitutional requirements. Because the whole philosophy of us, of parties nominating, or us passing the constitution to ensure that the parties have their nominations, is to ensure that we have representation, adequate representation in parliament that takes care of all those groups that might appear marginalized. And so it's good that we have other institutions participating, and moving forward, then perhaps it boils down to internal party
Right. Let's hear from Veronica, Maina, as we are winding up very briefly as well.
Yes. Now, I want to comment on the party lists, because I'm a strong believer in democratization of party processes, because there is no way you can enjoy democracy in a country if the political parties are not democratized. And unless you democratize, people will continue feeling the process is not free and fair. So if you generate candidates based on an unfair process, ultimately the leader you have given to Kenyans it's not a fair process all through. And this system does not tie to one activity. It's like a process. It runs the whole course. And I will comment first as an official of Jubilee Party. I cannot comment on other parties, how they've done their list. And I'll also comment as one who has been nominated, one of the persons who have been nominated by Jubilee Party.
Briefly.
Yes, for me to be nominated, I applied like any other Kenyan. I'm in NEC. I did not sit in the committee that determined, among all the people who have applied, who are we going to accord this chance? And what I would say is, they must have looked at the merit of the application. We had indicated, what is it you have done for the nation? What is it you have done for the party to justify this nomination? So I would say, if I was to comment on Jubilee, as one of the political parties, major political parties in Kenya, they tried to democratize the process. It was advertised, people applied. If there are any relatives of certain individuals who got into that list, I will not defend it, but I would say it should be raised as an issue of concern.
Thank you.
So the party can look at it.
All right, let Esther, very briefly.
Well, I mean, I'm a benefit of the nominations list of Jubilee being relatives and family members of some of the candidates, you know. So a lot of, I mean, I've been meeting recently a lot of Jubilee members and supporters, even the failed aspirants in nominations who felt that they were rigged out. They want to support my candidature because they're angry. And party members have a right to be angry. I also went to one of the Jubilee meetings and I met one ODM guy who also felt he was wrong, and he moved to the other camp. This is the beauty about democracy. Once you're wronged, you can move to the other camp. But what is important is, I think, integrity again. You see, integrity is a yardstick. It's like a ruler. On one side you got low, one side you got high. And we as Kenyans are on that yardstick. So if we have low integrity, we'll have all these problems. Because if we had high integrity, no relative should have made the nomination list. We've got not everybody can be nominated. No girlfriends should have made the nomination list. It should purely be people who have served the party, and then you try and accommodate everyone, people with persons with disability. You know, it's, for me, we have to just get our integrity high.
All right, thank you.